Well,
He can't.
no, be quiet. Be
Really.
nice. Be nice. Let's get to the bills.
Let's talk about the bills. There are a couple of bills that are currently happening right now on the floor in the Texas Congress, which is in session. You should be paying attention. By the way, also, local elections happening soon. We might have
Early voting just passed, I believe.
We might have a situation where we might talk about a couple of key candidates. I don't know, but you should definitely research your candidacies in your area and do those local elections. They are, in my opinion, the most important.
School board, commissioners, everything that runs your
School
actual
board
life.
elections are the most important elections. Please, please,
and your
please
city
vote.
commissioners,
Yes.
because it's literally people who affect your everyday life that you actually live in.
Yep.
This isn't some guy in Washington.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to the bills. We've delayed this too long.
First of all, we'll do 1515 first.
Okay, SB 1515.
So SB 1515 is basically asking, can we display the 10 Commandments at public schools? So there's the issue of there are things like at the state capitol, right, where the 10 Commandments are up there, and should we take it down?
Yes.
SB 1515 is asking, should we require people to put them up
In public schools.
in public schools?
Have them display in public schools.
Now here's the deal, right? The case is being made that it's appealing to the religious history of the United States. I'm not so sure. I think the case.
It is.
I think the case
It
that
actually
the United
is.
States is a Christian, was founded as a Christian nation.
No,
is
but
scant at best.
But the 10 Commandments and at least the teaching of the 10 Commandments and the Bible, especially certain passages to kind of get a broad issue of this is what a moral person would do. Just the story itself. You don't have to believe it's all these characters, but it's like reading a fictional book if you want to see it that way.
Sure.
Yes, if you do this actually kind of works out for you in the long run. Like, hey, don't lie. Let's teach a simple lesson. Don't lie. Hey, don't murder. It's just simple. People get along better when they don't do that.
So here's the thing. You're talking about the last 5 commandments, right? Don't lie, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't murder, that sort of stuff. The problem that these people, and when I say these people, I mean, don't covet. When I say these people, I mean the Democrats and the people that don't want the 10 Commandments stuff. It's not with those commandments. The problem they have is with, and this is not in the articles, this is just my personal opinion, which I believe is absolutely correct. The problem they have is with commandment number 1, right? I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Yep. You shall have no other gods before me. Yep. They don't want that displayed in public schools. Now, James.
Yes.
Justice James, do they have a case?
I think because of New York Rifle v. Bruin, which forces you to find a historical basis.
Sure.
Thanks to the Second Amendment and for any other amendment as well. And this is a practice of one's religion. In a sense. So it has historical basis. It does have a long history of this being a thing, and then it just got magically dropped. We incorporated, 8 to 10 words of a Thomas Jefferson letter at the very end without the whole context of the letter into somehow case law. A guy who happened to found it, we just pulled one of his letters. There you go, and now it somehow became law. Yep. Separation of church and state. That's not really a thing. It's just not. Currently, that's how it plays out, but it's not actually written there at all. That's just made up. So, I think you have a good way of challenging it with this case.
Yes.
And what's funny is that the Democrats who are opposing it saying they oppose because they worry it could exclude other religions and infringe on student and teacher rights to free religious expression. I thought students and teachers were not allowed to have religious expression.
Exactly.
Remember when you kicked out the Bible
and the other thing
from the
is,
school?
We're not asking people to recite the 10 Commandments.
Right, but wait, they're worried about that. So why would you be worried about that? What are y'all teaching inside the classroom?
Yeah.
If you were religiously expressing yourself, how are you doing that again? Could you please just explain a little bit to me?
Exactly.
So you kind of like let some kind of cat out of the bag with a comment.
So legally, you do think that this is a valid case?
I think it's a great way to start the conversation to kind of like break that down, because to me it's a made up law. It was pulled out of thin air, but right now it's precedent. It's kind of like we had the issue of Roe v. Wade and Casey. So it was made up, but it's supreme law of the land.
So do you think that's what Texas is doing here? Is that Texas?
I don't know, but I think they're trying to see what happens
in hopes that we can get some court precedents out of it.
Possibly, because we tried that with the heartbeat bill.
Sure.
I mean, and it
didn't work, but Mississippi's did.
Well, but that was the one they took.
Sure.
But similar writers of that bill are the same ones on this bill.
Yeah.
So it may have that long set or long vision mindset here.
Sure.
That's maybe what I'm saying, but I'm also hearing, Representative James Tellerico from Austin, who I've talked about before on the show. He said he's a Christian, and the bill is un-American and unchristian because it could force people who don't believe in what you believe, to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you're a Christian, you want that. That's the nicest thing you could do to them. Hey, this is the real story, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're reading. This is the true thing.
I don't know, man, because he says, well, this is unchristian. Well, it's not unchristian, but at the same time, it's not entirely Christian because the Ten Commandments doesn't just apply to Christianity; it also applies to Judaism.
Right.
Right. And also, you could make the case that because the fourth commandment is on there, and there's some interesting concepts as to whether or not Christians are still to adhere to the fourth commandment, because according to the book of Hebrews, it's actually fulfilled through the sacrifice of Christ. Because Christ is now our respite from sin and our peace with God. Therefore, Christ being Lord of the Sabbath means that he's actually fulfilled the Sabbath law, and we don't actually have to do it. That's why we worship on Sunday instead of Saturday.
Well, Jesus rose also on Sunday.
That's Nick's theological point for the day.
Well, I thought it was because Jesus rose on a Sunday.
It's the Lord's Day was deemed a Sunday because Jesus rose from the dead on a Sunday.
Or they were kicked out of the temple on Saturday, so
But
they said,
let's
let's just come back on Sunday, guys.
But the Lord's Day actually isn't a Sabbath, right? It's a time of worship. It's a time of dedication and study. And yes, you should have a degree of rest on Sundays, but we're not required to actually have a Sabbath rest, right? Okay, there we go, right? But that is an important thing to note. So it's certainly not unchristian, though, right? This notion of, this is un-American and unchristian. No.
Sorry, behind the scenes, my battery power is getting low.
Yeah, you were full. Do you want to go plug it in?
Yeah, I'll just plug it in. So
you were absolutely
sorry,
full
guys.
Of, you were absolutely full of hot air. Certainly, yeah. This guy's absolutely full of hot air. My thing is, I believe 100% that you should actually have the Ten Commandments in public schools for the same reason you should have the American flag in public schools. Nick, are you saying that those are the same thing? I mean, kind of, right? When you're talking about how the United States was founded and how it was established. Now, is the United States founded as a Christian nation? No, and I'm going to say that because James is not here to defend himself. Thomas Jefferson was likely not a Christian. He was a deist, and there are certain people like John Adams that were outwardly not Christians, right? And many of them were Unitarians. So the fact that this was founded as a nation for Christendom, for the sake of Christendom, because you had certain people at Plymouth land and claim religious asylum, is not necessarily the case. But the Ten Commandments are a foundational moral system that we base almost the entirety of Western culture on, to which the United States is a contributing beacon of, right? So, yeah, I think that it's perfectly fine to have the Ten Commandments in schools, and if they're in fact doing this because they want to, they want to try and make a case to talk about this whole notion of church and state, then more power to them, man. I actually think
that's kind of how I see it's going.
Pretty smart move. Now let's talk about the really controversial one, SB 14.
Woo!
So Senate Bill 14 is a bill that's actually was on the floor on, was it Monday?
Yes.
Yes. So it was on the floor on
or
Monday,
Tuesday,
right? It says, according to the Texas Tribune, link in the description, would ban transition-related health care for transgender kids in Texas, while the bill was slated to be in slated to be in discussion during the session on Tuesday.
Yes.
Now, this brought some controversy, and it brought some people to arrive at the Capitol and protest and go into the Capitol uninvited for the purposes of continuing the protest in an attempt to stop the work of governments going on in the Capitol that day,
yes,
because they didn't like how they suspected the people may vote.
Yes.
Does that sound vaguely familiar?
I don't recall.
Maybe of happening in another place, another city somewhere. What was it called when that happened in that other place at that other time? What was the word that was used?
I think it was insurrection?
Insurrection,
yeah,
yes.
Insurrection. This wasn't it, though. You know why? They're blue.
Yes.
So it's different.
This was not an
This was
insurrection.
speaking truth to power.
Yes, this was not an insurrection. This was just people peacefully protesting. And,
while disrupting the process of government.
and as a result, Dan Phelan, Speaker of the House for the United States, for the great state of Texas, right, basically said, listen, these guys are disrupting the business of the Senate. Get them out.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, even Representative Julie Johnson, she is from Farmers Branch, Democrat. She says she supports the protesters. She calls them protesters. Some got tackled and arrested, but we'll get to that. But
so it's
Dade
Phelan.
You have to obey the House rules.
Yes.
You are not allowed to disrupt proceedings, no matter how passionate you are. That is her quote.
Sure.
That is her saying, yeah, you can't do this crap. Guys,
yeah,
you're kind of doing the crap we said not to do.
We're trying to make a difference here, and you are messing this nonsense up. And it is true, right? And there are some pictures on this article. So there's this one picture, the one at the very top, where you have all these people that are holding signs, and you have this woman over here on the right who is a fake minister that's wearing the ministerial shawl, but it's all rainbow colored and stuff like that. I'm going, first of all, that's blasphemous. There used to be laws in this Texas that was against that. They could have gotten you kicked out and probably thrown in the stocks, which is where you belong.
I know. Women shouldn't be voting. I'm with you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right? Well.
What? No? Too far?
What I'm saying is our country has gone over a great decline in the past several years, which consequently coincides with when women started voting.
Okay.
I'm not making any causal link.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misheard you. Right? My bad.
Nonetheless, this lady here over on the side, this woman should have been in a more civil time. She would be tarred and feathered. But these people came in, they started protesting, and there were several people that were a little bit unruly and were detained, and that is apparently a crisis. Right now, there were several of these individuals.
There's silence in the trans voices.
Whatever. There were several of these individuals. One of whom was one of the leaders of the group. His name was Adri Perez, who was detained and was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts and 1 second-degree felony for assaulting a peace officer, and was let off on all charges.
They dropped it all.
They dropped everything, and he was out of jail the next day. Why?
That's Travis County for you.
Because these people know they're going in front of a Travis County judge. Yeah. So they can do whatever they want, right? It's like that dude.
Well, the Travis County prosecutor, mostly because the state is the one who actually drops the charges. Yeah. So they just go, yeah, he's fine. Yeah. But he just, I know, I saw the buddy cam. He's fine.
Who's that district attorney who's the DA in New York City that's letting people off?
Was it Alvin Bragg or something like that?
Yes, Alvin Bragg, right? So we have our own Alvin Braggs here in it's whoever's running Travis County. Yeah.
Running is a loosely used term.
They got let off, and they actually, based on a technicality, had to stop discussing the bill, and it's actually being discussed today. Yeah,
today's Friday on Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, exactly. So,
well, that to me, okay, I see that as awesome. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. It's Democrats who pulled that. But I forget, what did it say? It said something along the lines of basically like if you had LLC, you say Nick and James LLC, but it was an Inc. And I said LLC. Well, then you didn't name Nick and James Inc. You just said a random company. Yeah. It was like it was some medical association, and they didn't name it all the way out. Wow. And so they're like, technically you can't do that, which requires a reread, which requires a new day to vote on this. So I kind of applaud them on that, because one of those little technicalities going, that's all you got. Kudos to them, because if that's all you have, you play the deck that's in your hand, even though you're getting outvoted, so that way you can show your voters, we tried to rah-rah, and we got outvoted.
This is like when those people denied a quorum by they got on a plane and went to D.C.
D.C. with Miller Lite. Yeah, I remember that.
Some of that nonsense. There is a great deal of people who are on the tweets, on the Twitter, that are talking about, particularly this one video where you had a lady, this will be in the article, link in the description, where you had a lady who was being detained by these police officers as the police officers were trying to get people out of the door. There's a lot of people saying this woman wasn't doing anything. There's no reason for this. She was tackled by 4 cops. And, I mean, fair play. She was taken down by several police officers. And why do you need that many police officers in order to lock down one female who I'm not actually certain is a female, just looking at this video?
Possibly.
Why do you need that many people? My question is this. Have you ever tried to restrain someone who does not want to be restrained?
Yeah, my son all the time.
It's very difficult, including for smaller people. So yes, multiple people had to put this woman down, put this individual.
Boy, did they.
Individual. And they brought her down hard.
Sack of potatoes.
Hard. Boom.
Yeah.
Right to the ground. And so I asked a friend of ours who's a police officer, retired police officer, saying, hey, there's people that are making this complaint about this lady. What is it? Is there something I missed? Did she maybe have a gun or whatever? She didn't. But he called back and basically said, no, these people detained her completely justified. There's clearly a situation where there's a police line. They're trying to get people out of the building.
Yeah.
Phelan has asked them to get out of the building. You have the right to show up. But as soon as the government says you need to get out of the government building, they have the right to do that.
Yeah.
There's also a tape line that's established. And this woman is continually trying to pivot and get past these people. At one point, she does hit a cop in the leg and try and I'm using she. I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct pronoun, but that's what she looks like. And yeah, she's trying to navigate, and then she basically tries to make a run for it, and they say nah, and they take her down. So yeah, there's really nothing wrong with that. And the other thing is that he says, here's the deal: you don't understand this unless you've been in police work. That's a mild takedown.
Really?
That is not a.
I guess yeah, you could have just like
that is
really
not
went
a
into it.
forceful thing, right? They got her to the ground, and immediately, one guy protects her legs, and they put her in handcuffs, right? But just because somebody is in handcuffs does not mean that there's injustice going on, friends. Especially if the people on the other side of it are committing an insurrection, which is what they were doing. I'm sorry if you're saying
not, though.
If you're saying that January 6th is an insurrection, then what was this May 2nd? Then May 2nd was an insurrection as well. You can't use both of those.
And what this really does, they're really mad because they constantly said this isn't happening. They're not mutilating children. They're not poisoning them with gender-affirming pills and puberty blockers and all
I'm
that.
sorry. Let's actually talk about the law.
Which are actually reversible, whatever. But then they said, like, well, even in this Tribune article, even for body mutilation, which they current, gender-affirming care, surgeries, mutilation of your genitals.
Yes.
And they say, like, it's rare. Hold on. I thought it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it can. But after a lot of therapy with the actual person who's trying to sell this to them,
sure.
Yes. Wait. Okay.
Also,
I'm just making sure. Because I've been trying for 10 years to kick the habit of smoking cigarettes, but the guy that's helping me, I mean, it doesn't matter. He's a Marlboro salesman. He's trying to help me quit the cigarettes. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. He wouldn't be trying to influence me at all to try the new pack or the new flavor of the month.
Mm-hmm. Also, I missed the point where the frequency with which an event occurs should determine the legality of that event or whether or not it should be placed in legislation, right? They say, well, sometimes kids are getting their genitals mutilated or removed based on things that they can't consent to. But it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We would like to make a law just to prevent that infrequent occurrence because that really is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not happening that often. Who cares?
One's too many.
Who cares, right?
It is not a simple consent form of a parent to do this to their child. I don't care what they're feeling.
You know what doesn't happen often? Murder, right?
Unless you're in Harris County.
Well, that's different, right? Murder doesn't happen. It's not an everyday occurrence for people, right? You don't often hear or witness. You don't often hear about or witness a murder on a regular basis. Does that mean we just shouldn't have laws? Right? Because, well,
the reason why we don't have it that much? There's a law.
There's a law, exactly.
that says, hey, if you do blank, we're gonna put you in jail for a while.
So it's
possibly kill you back.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous concept.
Yeah,
right?
That's all it's about. It's about allowing puberty blockers, hormone therapy, all this gender affirming care. Because they say it in that euphemism because they don't want to say what it is. It's mutilation of body and poisoning of the body,
sure.
Permanently for life, making you a medical patient for life.
Yeah,
that's what you did. That's why it's money signs. That's why therapy of the doctor is typically encouraged. It's like, right, it's like asking to make the money. So of course you'd be encouraging it.
People are jumping on the political opportunities that is presented to us by a cultural fad.
Yeah.
Right? And not only a political opportunities, the monetary opportunities. Because like you said, you're a patient for life. You know what that means? You're paying into the system.
You have to get prescriptions.
You always have to get prescriptions. You always have to go in and have checkups and you have to make sure that everything's fine because you're doing something unnatural to your body.
Yeah. And once you kind of anything like this, it'll get whittled down to, maybe 10 or less drugs
Yep.
that you're going to have. Once we all know it's 10 or less drugs, it's so weird the price keeps increasing.
Yeah.
Huh.
And the other
And
situation
you have to have it.
is that this is currently happening at the state level, and that's where the fight is now. But the fight at the state level starts at the local level.
Yeah.
So when we talk about voting in your local elections, friends, please vote in your local elections, because that's where it really matters. That's where change is about to be instituted. And if we can get the localities to change, the states will change. And if the states will change, ultimately the nation will change. That's what it means to be the stars at night. And as the stars at night, we are
Big and bright.
We'll see you next week, friends.